A billionaire spots a shivering boy under a tattered blanket one day. Drawn by an unshakable instinct, he offers help, unaware this single act of kindness will change both their lives forever.
Why are you out here? It's freezing. You'll die.
I've survived worse. No one cares anyway.
I care. Let me help you.
Why? What do you want from me?
Nothing. But maybe one day, you'll understand why.
Years later, the boy he adopted stands on the cusp of changing the world in a way no one could have imagined. What inspired the billionaire to take such a leap of faith for a stranger? How does the boy repay him years later, transforming their shared legacy forever? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The rain fell in a steady drizzle over New York City, casting a gray veil across the towering buildings. William Harrington pulled his expensive coat tighter around his shoulders, his polished shoes splashing through puddles that reflected the city lights. The weather matched his mood, a quiet sadness that had become his constant companion since losing Sarah 3 years ago. He checked his watch, noting he still had time before his dinner meeting with an old college friend. These social obligations felt increasingly hollow lately. His success in the tech industry had brought him wealth beyond imagination, but the emptiness in his penthouse apartment seemed to grow with each passing day. A gust of wind sent rain spattering against his face as he took a shortcut through a narrow alley. That's when he saw it, a small figure huddled against the brick wall, sheltered only by a threadbare blanket. The sight made William pause. Under the dim glow of a security light, he could make out a young boy, no more than 12, trying to stay dry beneath the meager covering. "Hey there," William said softly, crouching down despite the wet pavement soaking into his tailored pants. "You shouldn't be out here in this weather." The boy's eyes darted up, sharp and wary. "I'm fine," he replied, his voice carrying a strength that belied his circumstances. "I'm William," he said, careful to maintain a non-threatening distance. "Would you like to get something to eat? There's a diner just around the corner." The boy hesitated, studying William's face with an intensity that spoke of hard-learned caution. "Why?" "Because you look like you could use a warm meal, and honestly, I could use the company." William offered a gentle smile. No strings attached. Just dinner. After a long moment, the boy slowly stood, keeping the blanket wrapped around his shoulders. "I'm Malik," he said finally. The diner's bell chimed as they entered, the warmth and smell of coffee wrapping around them. They slid into a booth, Malik's eyes taking in every detail of his surroundings. The waitress brought menus, and William noticed how Malik's fingers traced the laminated pages with careful precision. "Order whatever you'd like," William said. Malik chose a burger with fries and a chocolate milkshake, his movements measured as he ate, savoring each bite. As the meal progressed, his rigid posture gradually relaxed. "So," William ventured, "what's your story, Malik?" Malik pushed a fry through a pool of ketchup. "My mom got sick last year. Cancer. The treatments took everything we had, but..." He swallowed hard. "Didn't matter in the end." William's heart clenched. "What about other family?" "Uncle said he'd take me in. Changed his mind after the funeral." Malik's voice remained steady, but his eyes betrayed the pain. "Been making do since then." "I've seen you working on something in that alley. What was that?" For the first time, Malik's face lit up. "I find things people throw away. Electronics mostly. I'm trying to build a portable heater that runs on solar power. For people who..." He gestured vaguely at himself. "You know?" William leaned forward, intrigued. "You taught yourself engineering?" "YouTube tutorials, library computers when I can get time. Mom always said I had a knack for fixing things." Pride crept into Malik's voice. "I want to make things that help people. Real things, not just fancy gadgets for rich people." The word struck William like a physical blow. He remembered saying something similar decades ago, before success and grief had dulled his original vision. When they finished eating, William walked Malik back to his alley, despite the boy's insistence that it wasn't necessary. At the entrance, he pulled out a business card and his pen, scribbling his personal number on the back. I'd like to come back tomorrow, Malik. Maybe you can show me that heater you're working on. Malik took the card carefully as if it might disappear. You don't have to. I know, William replied. I want to. He watched Malik settle back into his spot before turning away. As he walked through the rain toward his original destination, William felt something he hadn't experienced in years. A spark of purpose, bright and warm against the night's chill. The next morning dawned crisp and clear as William made his way back to the alley, carrying a paper bag filled with warm croissants and a backpack containing new clothes. His heart beat faster as he approached, worried Malik might not be there. But the boy sat cross-legged against the wall, tinkering with what looked like an old circuit board. Good morning, William called out softly. Malik's head snapped up, surprise and wariness battling across his face. You actually came back, Malik said, trying to sound casual but failing to hide his relief. William set the bag down between them. Of course I did. I brought breakfast and some clean clothes. Nothing fancy, just basics. Malik eyed the offering suspiciously. Why are you doing this? Because everyone deserves a chance, William replied simply. And because I see something special in you, Malik. No strings attached, remember? After a moment's hesitation, Malik reached for a croissant. As they ate, William suggested they spend the day together, maybe explore the city a bit. Malik agreed, though his guard remained up. Throughout the day, William watched in amazement as Malik's eyes lit up at every piece of technology they encountered. In an electronics store, the boy provided a detailed explanation of how touchscreens worked. At a construction site, he pointed out inefficiencies in the crane's hydraulic system. His knowledge, though sometimes incomplete, showed remarkable intuition. Over the next few days, William fell into a routine of visiting Malik, bringing various small gifts, technical manuals, a set of precision screwdrivers, healthy snacks. One morning, he brought an old radio he'd deliberately disabled. Think you can fix it? William challenged, hiding a smile. Malik's fingers moved deftly over the radio's components. The speaker connection is loose, he muttered, reaching for his new tools. Within 20 minutes, music filled the alley. How did you learn to do that? William asked, genuinely impressed. Mom used to bring home broken appliances from the thrift store where she worked, Malik explained, his voice soft with memory. Said if I could fix them, we could sell them. Started reading everything I could find about electronics after that. Later that week, William sat across from his lawyer in a wood-paneled office, discussing his growing desire to adopt Malik. William, I need to be clear about the risks, the lawyer said, shuffling through papers. Taking in a street child, there could be unknown family members, legal complications, not to mention how it might affect your company's image. I don't care about the image, William replied firmly. That boy has more raw talent than half my R&D department. But more importantly, he needs someone to believe in him. The press will have a field day, your shareholders. We'll have to deal with it, William cut in. Just tell me what I need to do. That evening, William sat in his study, surrounded by adoption paperwork. The desk lamp cast a warm glow over documents outlining background checks, home studies, and legal requirements. He picked up a silver frame containing a photo of his late wife, Sarah, her smile as bright and warm as he remembered. I think you'd like him, he whispered to the photograph, running his thumb along the frame. He has your spirit, that same fire to make the world better. He placed the photo carefully on top of the adoption papers, a silent promise taking shape in his heart. Malik stood frozen at the entrance of William's mansion, his worn backpack clutched tightly against his chest. The building stretched before him like something from a movie, all gleaming windows and elegant stonework. His reflection in the polished marble floor looked small and out of place. Welcome home, William said, trying to sound casual but clearly nervous himself. He gestured toward the grand staircase. Let me show you around. As they walked through the house, Malik's eyes widened at each new revelation. The kitchen was bigger than his old apartment. The dining room could seat 20 people. Each bathroom had heated floors and towels so soft they felt like clouds. This will be your room, William announced, opening a door on the second floor. Malik stepped inside, his mouth falling open. A king-sized bed dominated one wall, while a state-of-the-art computer setup occupied another. The walk-in closet was already filled with new clothes. "It's too much," Malik whispered, his voice catching. "I don't deserve—" "You do," William interrupted firmly, though his hands fidgeted uncertainly at his sides. The first few weeks brought challenges neither had expected. Malik would hoard food in his room, a habit from his days of uncertainty. He'd apologize profusely for the smallest accidents, like dropping a fork at dinner. Sometimes William would find him sleeping on the floor instead of the bed, the comfort too foreign to accept. William struggled too. He'd catch himself working late into the night, forgetting to check if Malik had eaten dinner. During important business calls, he'd miss Malik's tentative knocks at his office door. Their schedules clashed, their expectations misaligned. One evening, William returned home to find Malik had taken apart the expensive coffee maker. "I'm sorry," Malik jumped up, tools scattering across the counter. "It was making this weird noise and I thought—" But William noticed the machine was running more quietly than before. "Did you fix it?" Malik nodded hesitantly. "The grinder had a loose bearing. I found some old parts in the garage that worked perfectly." William smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. He cleared his schedule for the rest of the evening and asked Malik to teach him what he'd done. They began finding their rhythm. William learned to schedule regular meals together. Malik slowly stopped apologizing for existing in the space. They developed small rituals, William teaching Malik which fork to use for salad, Malik showing William how to properly organize his toolbox. One quiet evening, they sat in the mansion's vast library. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, their leather spines gleaming in the warm lamplight. Malik ran his fingers along the edge of his chair, gathering courage. "Why did you pick me?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are lots of kids on the street. Why help me?" William set down the book he'd been holding. "When I was young, before all this," he gestured at the room around them, "I was poor too. But someone saw potential in me, gave me a chance. They believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." He met Malik's eyes. "Everyone deserves that chance, Malik. And you remind me so much of myself at your age. That same spark, that same drive to understand how things work." Malik ducked his head, but not before William caught the glimmer of tears in his eyes. They sat together in comfortable silence, surrounded by books and the growing warmth of understanding between them. Malik stood at the entrance of Greenwich Preparatory Academy, tugging at his perfectly pressed uniform. The building's Gothic architecture loomed over him, its stone walls seeming to judge his presence. Students streamed past, their designer bags and practiced confidence making his second-hand backpack feel even heavier. In his first class, Advanced Physics, Malik sat near the back, trying to blend into the walls. But when the teacher asked a complex question about electromagnetic fields, his hand shot up before he could stop himself. His answer was perfect, earning a surprised nod from the teacher and curious glances from his classmates. "Must have memorized the textbook," a boy whispered loudly enough for Malik to hear. "Trying to prove he belongs here." The whispers followed him through the halls. "Did you hear? He's Harrington's charity case. I heard he used to live on the streets. My father says it's all a publicity stunt." Malik kept his head high, focusing on each lesson with fierce determination, his notebooks filled with precise notes and innovative solutions. Teachers began to take notice, but his peers maintained their distance, leaving empty seats around him in every class. During lunch period, Malik found a quiet corner in the cafeteria. He was halfway through his sandwich when a shadow fell across his table. Looking up, he found himself facing Trevor Matthews, a senior known for his family's banking fortune. "Hey, street rat," Trevor sneered, flanked by his usual group of followers. "This table's reserved for real students, not publicity stunts." Malik's hands clenched under the table, but he remained silent, remembering William's advice about choosing his battles. "What's wrong? Can't afford words either?" Trevor reached for Malik's lunch tray. "Back off, Matthews." A sharp voice cut through the tension. A girl with dark curly hair and fierce eyes stepped between them. Is bullying the new student really the best way to prove your superiority? Because from where I'm standing, it just proves you're insecure about your own worth. Trevor's face reddened. Stay out of this, Sophia. Just because your father's on the board. Just because your father's rich doesn't give you the right to be a jerk, Sophia interrupted. At least Malik earned his place here. What have you done lately except coast on your family name? The cafeteria had gone silent, all eyes on their confrontation. Trevor opened his mouth, closed it, then stalked away, his followers scrambling after him. Sophia dropped into the seat across from Malik. I'm Sophia Martinez. Don't let Trevor get to you. He's been insufferable since kindergarten. After school, they sat on a bench in the courtyard watching other students leave in their expensive cars. Sophia shared stories about growing up as one of the few scholarship students before her father's tech company took off. It's like they think money is a personality trait, she said, rolling her eyes. Half of them couldn't solve a basic equation without their tutors. For the first time since arriving at Greenwich Prep, Malik felt his guard lowering. He told Sophia about his life on the streets, about fixing broken electronics to earn spare change. That's actually pretty amazing, Sophia said, genuine admiration in her voice. You learned all that on your own? Malik nodded, a small smile forming. It was either that or freeze during winter. You'd be surprised how many people will pay to fix their space heaters. They talked until the sun began to set, sharing experiences of being outsiders in this privileged world. In Sophia's understanding eyes and quick wit, Malik found something he hadn't expected to find at Greenwich Prep, a true friend. The gleaming conference room of Harrington Industries buzzed with tension as William Harrington stood at the head of the long mahogany table. His normally confident posture showed subtle signs of strain, a tighter grip on his tablet, a slight furrow in his brow. Our Q3 numbers are concerning, William admitted to the gathered executives. Production delays have cost us millions, and 3 major contracts are at risk. David Bennett, seated at William's right hand, leaned forward with an air of reassurance. His perfectly pressed suit and calm demeanor provided a stark contrast to the anxiety filling the room. I've personally overseen the restructuring of our supply chain, David said smoothly. The disruptions are temporary, William. Trust me, we'll be back on track within weeks. William's shoulders relaxed slightly at David's words. Thank you, David. Your dedication has been invaluable during this crisis. At home that evening, Malik watched William pick at his dinner, noting the dark circles under his adoptive father's eyes. The usual warmth in their conversations had been replaced by distracted responses and lengthy silences. How was the board meeting? Malik asked carefully. Fine, William replied, his attention on his phone. Just some temporary setbacks. Nothing David and I can't handle. The following evening, Malik visited William's office, hoping to coax him into taking a break. Finding William's office empty, he wandered the quiet corridors. As he passed the main conference room, voices drifted through the partially open door. The supply chain disruptions are just the beginning, David's voice carried clearly. Once the contracts fall through, Harrington Industries will be vulnerable. William's too trusting for his own good. An unfamiliar voice responded. Make sure there's no paper trail. We need this to look like natural market forces. Malik's hands trembled as he quickly typed notes into his phone. His heart pounded as he hurried to William's office, where his adoptive father had just returned. William, I need to tell you something important, Malik burst out. I just heard David talking to someone. They're planning to destroy the company. William's expression shifted from concern to disappointment. Malik, I know things have been stressful lately, but making up stories about David isn't helpful. I'm not making it up. I heard him talking about supply chain disruptions and contracts. Enough! William's voice was sharp. David has been my right hand for 15 years. He's the reason we survived the tech crash of Tier 8. I won't have you spreading paranoid accusations. Malik stepped back, hurt flooding his chest. But Go home, Malik. I have work to do. Later that night, Malik sat cross-legged on his bed, staring at the notes on his phone. The words blurred as tears of frustration welled in his eyes. Down the hall in his study, William continued working late into the night. In William's office, David Bennett gathered his things to leave. His polite smile dropped away as soon as he closed the office door. Taking out his phone, he dialed a number while walking to the elevator. "Phase 1 is complete," he said quietly. "William suspects nothing. We'll proceed as planned." The old brass doorknob caught Malik's eye as he wandered down one of the mansion's lesser-used corridors. Unlike the polished handles throughout the rest of the house, this one bore the patina of age and disuse. His fingers traced the intricate keyhole, remembering the skills he'd learned during harder times. With practiced movements, Malik retrieved 2 small pieces of wire from his pocket. Old habits died hard. Within minutes, the lock clicked softly. He hesitated for a moment, guilt warring with curiosity, before pushing the door open. The room beyond took his breath away. Shelves lined every wall, crammed with gadgets in various stages of completion. Blueprints covered most surfaces, their blue lines mapping out dreams and possibilities. The air smelled of metal and possibility. Malik moved deeper into the space, careful not to disturb anything. His eyes widened at the sight of a half-finished robot arm, its inner workings exposed. Nearby, a desk held what looked like early prototypes of the smartphones that had made William famous. "I see you found my sanctuary." Malik spun around to find William leaning against the doorframe, an unexpected smile playing at his lips. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have," Malik began. William waved away his apology. "Actually, I'm impressed. That lock's given even professional locksmiths trouble." He moved into the room, running his hand along a dusty workbench. This is where it all started. Settling onto a worn stool, William picked up what looked like a simple metal cylinder. "You know, I wasn't always wealthy. Far from it. My family lived in a neighborhood without reliable access to clean water." His eyes grew distant. "I was about your age when I built this, my first real invention." "What is it?" Malik asked, drawing closer. "A solar-powered water purifier. Simple, efficient, and cheap to produce. It caught the attention of some investors and, well..." William gestured at the room around them. "The rest is history." Malik studied the device with new appreciation. "How does it work?" William's face lit up as he began explaining the mechanics. Malik listened intently, occasionally interjecting with questions that made William's eyebrows rise in approval. "You know," Malik said hesitantly, "I've been thinking about a design for a portable heating system, something that could help homeless people during winter." William's eyes softened. "Show me." Together they cleared a space on one of the workbenches. Malik sketched his idea while William offered suggestions. The afternoon light faded to evening as they lost themselves in the joy of creation. William pulled out an old blueprint, yellowed with age. "This was my first draft of the purifier. Maybe we can learn something from it for your heating system." They bent over the document together, the warm glow of the lab's vintage lighting casting their shadows on the wall behind them. "You know, Malik," William said, "I'd be honored to help you develop your first invention." In the dim light of Sophia's bedroom, Malik hunched over her laptop, scrolling through pages of corporate records. Sophia sat cross-legged beside him, her fingers flying across her own keyboard as they dug deeper into David Bennett's past. "Look at this," Sophia said, turning her screen toward Malik. "David worked at 3 companies before Harrington Industries. All of them experienced major data breaches within months of his departure." Malik leaned closer, his eyes scanning the news articles. And each time, Innovex Industries swooped in to acquire the weakened companies. He pulled up another window. "Here's something else. David's LinkedIn profile doesn't mention any of these positions." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "That's definitely suspicious. Let me try something." She accessed a database of corporate filings. "There's a pattern here. Every company David worked for had dealings with Innovex, even if they weren't public." Their research continued late into the evening, Malik's notebook filled with dates, connections, and suspicious coincidences. The picture becoming clearer with each discovery. David Bennett was not who he claimed to be. The next morning, Malik gathered his evidence and headed to William's study. His hands trembled slightly as he knocked on the heavy wooden door. "Come in," William called. Malik entered, clutching his folder of documents. We need to talk about David. William's expression hardened. Malik, we've been through this. Please, just look at what I found. Malik spread the papers across William's desk. David has connections to Innovex Industries. Every company he's worked for has fallen apart, and Innovex always benefits. William's jaw tightened. You've been digging into my COO's personal history? Someone had to, these records show. Enough! William stood up, his voice sharp. This stops now. David has been loyal to me for years. You had no right to investigate him. But the evidence is circumstantial at best. You're seeing conspiracies where there are none. William gathered the papers roughly. This kind of behavior is unacceptable, Malik. You can't just hack into private records because you have a feeling. I'm trying to protect you. Malik's voice cracked with frustration. Why won't you even consider the possibility? Because I trust David. He's helped build this company from the ground up. William's expression softened slightly. I know you mean well, but you're wrong about this. Malik felt tears stinging his eyes but refused to let them fall. You're so blinded by loyalty that you can't see what's right in front of you. That's enough. William's tone was final. Go to your room. We'll discuss your punishment for this breach of privacy later. Malik turned and stormed out of the study, his footsteps echoing in the hallway. Behind him, William slumped in his chair, running a hand over his face. Across town, in a private dining room at an exclusive restaurant, David Bennett sat across from a sharp-dressed woman. Her Innovex Industries ID badge glinted under the chandelier light as they clinked their wine glasses together. The news hit like a thunderbolt. Harrington Industries' stock plummeted as confidential product designs and trade secrets leaked onto the internet. William stood at his office window, watching reporters gather outside the building like vultures. His phone buzzed, another alert about the company's falling share price. Millions were evaporating by the hour. As he scrolled through the details of the leak, William's mind kept returning to Malik's warnings. The boy had tried to tell him, but he hadn't listened. In Sophia's bedroom, Malik and Sophia huddled over their laptops, working frantically to trace the source of the leak. I've got something, Sophia said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The files were uploaded from an IP address within Harrington Industries. Malik leaned closer. Can you narrow it down? Sophia nodded, her face illuminated by the screen's blue glow. It's coming from David's office computer. They dug deeper, Sophia bypassing security protocols while Malik documented everything they found. Hidden folders revealed emails between David and Innovex executives, discussing payment schedules and information transfers. Bank statements showed large deposits to offshore accounts matching the dates of previous security breaches. This is it, Malik whispered. We've got him. When Malik entered William's study this time, the atmosphere was different. William looked tired, defeated. He listened silently as Malik presented the evidence, his face growing darker with each revelation. I should have trusted you, William said finally, his voice heavy with regret. You saw what I refused to see. Together, they formulated a plan. William would call an emergency board meeting, announcing a revolutionary new product line. It would be too tempting for David to resist. The trap was set. Security cameras were positioned, and IT teams stood ready to track any data transfers. Sophia monitored the network from her laptop, while Malik watched from William's office. As the board meeting began, David sat in his usual place beside William, looking confident and composed. William started his presentation about a breakthrough in quantum computing technology, all fabricated but convincing enough to bait the hook. Right on cue, David excused himself to take an urgent call. Minutes later, Sophia's message flashed on Malik's phone. He's uploading the files now. Security officers moved into position. When David returned to the boardroom, looking smugly satisfied, he found himself facing not just the board, but also federal agents. David Bennett, William's voice cut through the silence. You're fired, and under arrest for corporate espionage. The color drained from David's face as agents approached with handcuffs. His mask of loyalty finally cracked revealing the calculating betrayer beneath. "You ruined everything," he snarled at William. Then his eyes landed on Malik. "It was you, wasn't it? The street rat who thought he could play detective?" Malik stood tall beside William, unflinching under David's glare. As the agents led David away, William placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner," William said softly. "You saved this company, Malik. You saw the truth when I couldn't." Tears welled in Malik's eyes, but these were different from the frustrated tears he'd shed before. These were tears of vindication, of finally being heard and trusted. "Thank you for giving me a chance to prove myself," Malik replied, his voice steady and strong. The evening shadows stretched across William's study as he sat hunched over his desk, surrounded by mountains of paperwork. Financial reports, damage assessments, and newspaper clippings scattered across the polished wooden surface told a story of betrayal and loss. His usually sharp eyes looked dull as they scanned the documents, each page revealing another crack in the foundation he'd spent decades building. From the doorway, Malik observed his adoptive father's slumped shoulders. The sight of William, usually so composed and confident, looking defeated, stirred something protective in the boy's heart. Without a word, he slipped away to the kitchen. 20 minutes later, Malik returned carrying a tray with a steaming cup of tea and a plate of sandwiches. He set it down quietly beside William, carefully moving aside some papers to make space. "You haven't eaten since breakfast," Malik said softly. William looked up, momentarily startled from his brooding. "I hadn't noticed the time." Over the next few days, Malik established a quiet routine. He made sure fresh coffee appeared on William's desk each morning, scheduled regular meal breaks, and even coordinated with the household staff to maintain order in the mansion. When William worked late, Malik would silently bring him reading glasses and turn on the desk lamp before the older man's eyes could strain. During one particularly long evening, Malik noticed an inconsistency in some financial reports while organizing William's desk. He hesitated before speaking up. "These quarterly projections," Malik said, pointing to a specific page. "They don't account for the new security protocols we implemented after David left." William initially waved him off, but Malik persisted, explaining his reasoning. After a moment's consideration, William realized the boy was right. The oversight could have cost them millions more. As days turned into weeks, Malik's presence in the study became a constant. He started by simply organizing documents, but soon began offering observations about market trends and suggesting innovative solutions to problems. William's initial resistance to Malik's help gradually melted away as he recognized the sharp mind behind those careful suggestions. One evening, as they sat reviewing the day's reports together, William set down his papers and looked at Malik with new eyes. The boy who had once huddled in an alley now sat confidently at his side, helping to rebuild what David had tried to destroy. "Thank you, Malik," William said quietly. "These past weeks? I don't know how I would have managed without you." Malik looked up from his stack of papers, his expression serious but determined. "We're family now," he replied simply. "We'll rebuild together." William felt something tight in his chest loosen at those words. For the first time since David's betrayal, he felt the weight on his shoulders begin to lift. The library's warm oak shelves towered around William and Malik as morning light streamed through tall windows. William carefully arranged a selection of leather-bound books and folders on the massive study table, each one chosen with purpose. "If you want to help with the company," William said, his voice gentle but firm, "there's a lot you need to learn first." Malik nodded eagerly, running his fingers along the spine of the nearest book. "Where do we start?" "At the beginning." William pulled out a chair and sat down beside him. "First, we'll cover the basics of business strategy. Then we'll move on to innovation principles, and most importantly, business ethics." Their daily sessions became a cherished routine. Each morning, they would meet in the library for 2 hours before William headed to the office. William shared stories from his early days, including mistakes that had cost him dearly. "I once rushed a product launch without proper testing," William admitted during one session. "My excitement about the technology blinded me to potential problems. That mistake taught me that innovation without responsibility can be dangerous. Malik absorbed everything like a sponge, asking thoughtful questions that often made William pause and reconsider his own assumptions. During a discussion about market analysis, Malik spotted a pattern in some old data that William had missed years ago. "See how these customer complaints cluster around specific features?" Malik pointed out. "It's like they're telling us exactly what they needed, but nobody was listening in the right way." William's colleagues began to notice Malik's contributions during video conferences he sat in on. During one meeting about supply chain issues, Malik suggested a simple but effective solution that had everyone nodding in agreement. "The kid's got a good head on his shoulders," remarked one board member, after Malik identified a potential flaw in their new distribution strategy. As weeks passed, their sessions evolved from formal lessons into collaborative discussions. William found himself learning as much as he taught, seeing familiar challenges through Malik's fresh perspective. One afternoon, while dealing with a minor crisis involving a delayed product shipment, Malik calmly suggested rerouting through a smaller distributor they'd worked with before. His solution not only resolved the immediate problem, but also revealed an opportunity to improve their entire delivery system. William watched from across the room as Malik walked the logistics team through his proposal, his voice confident but humble. In that moment, seeing Malik's natural leadership and innovative thinking, William felt something shift inside him. The lingering despair from David's betrayal gave way to hope as he recognized in Malik not just a student, but a true successor. The young man standing before him wasn't just absorbing lessons, he was building upon them, bringing his own unique perspective to every challenge. For the first time, William could clearly see the future of Harrington Industries, and it looked brighter than ever. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as Malik Johnson stepped up to the podium. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching the gold trim on his graduation gown. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the microphone, but his voice rang out clear and strong. 4 years ago, I was living on the streets, convinced that dreams were luxuries I couldn't afford, Malik began, his eyes finding William in the crowd. One rainy night changed everything when someone saw potential in me that I couldn't see in myself. William sat in the front row, his chest swelling with pride. He watched as Malik shared his journey from homeless youth to valedictorian, moving many in the audience to tears. Opportunity isn't just about being given a chance, Malik continued. It's about what you do with that chance. Each of us has the power to transform our lives and the lives of others. After the ceremony, Malik clutched his scholarship letter to MIT while posing for photos with William. The full ride meant more than just financial support. It was validation of his hard work and abilities. At college, however, reality hit hard. Malik found himself surrounded by brilliant minds from privileged backgrounds. Whispers followed him through the halls. That's William Harrington's kid. He only got in because of his dad. Must be nice having a billionaire parent. The pressure to prove himself worthy of both his scholarship and the Harrington name weighed heavily. Late nights in the engineering lab became his refuge. While other students partied, Malik pored over designs for his water purification project. His prototype combined solar power with new filtration technology, aiming to provide sustainable clean water to remote communities. The idea had sparked during a late-night conversation with William about his first invention, but Malik was determined to make it his own. Your design has potential, his professor noted during office hours. But these calculations need work. Don't let your name make you rush the process. Malik nodded, fighting back frustration. He'd earned every grade, solved every problem on his own, yet still couldn't escape the shadow of his father's success. One night, after a particularly challenging day of failed experiments, Malik sat on his dorm room floor surrounded by scattered blueprints. He pulled out his phone and called William. "Dad," he said, his excitement breaking through the exhaustion, "I think I figured out the filtration issue. If we modify the solar panel configuration?" William listened intently as Malik explained his breakthrough, hearing echoes of his own youthful enthusiasm in his son's voice. Pride mixed with nostalgia as he recognized the familiar fire of innovation that had once driven him to change the world. The mahogany-paneled boardroom felt unusually tense as William Harrington studied the faces of his executives. Charts and graphs projected on the wall showed disturbing patterns, systematic market manipulation, and coordinated attacks on Harrington Industries stock. "These moves are too precise to be random," said Janet Chen, the head of security. "Someone's orchestrating a complex takeover strategy, using information that was leaked during David Bennett's time here." William's jaw tightened. The betrayal still stung, but this felt different, more calculated, more dangerous. He glanced at the stock projections again, noting the precise timing of each market hit. Back at the mansion, Malik dropped his college duffel bag in the foyer, immediately sensing something was off. William's usual warmth seemed subdued, his shoulders tense as he welcomed his son home for winter break. Over dinner that evening, William barely touched his food, his mind clearly elsewhere. Malik watched as his father checked his phone repeatedly, frowning at each notification. "Everything okay at work?" Malik asked carefully. "Just some challenging developments," William replied, attempting a reassuring smile that didn't reach his eyes. That night, Malik couldn't sleep. He pulled out his laptop and began digging through old files from the David Bennett case. Something about William's behavior reminded him of those difficult days. The next morning, Malik called Sophia. "I need your help," he said. "Something's wrong at Harrington Industries again." Sophia's fingers flew across her keyboard as they video chatted. "These new market patterns look familiar," she observed. "Wait, look at this trading signature. It matches some of the algorithms we found when investigating David's connections to Innovex. Together, they traced digital breadcrumbs through financial records and corporate filings. The evidence pointed to a sophisticated operation run by Innovex Industries, using the intelligence David had gathered to orchestrate a larger attack. "It's like they were just waiting for the right moment," Sophia said, her voice grim. "David wasn't working alone. He was just the first phase." Malik compiled their findings into a detailed report, complete with transaction records and network analysis. When he presented it to William in his study, his father's expression grew increasingly grave. "This is bigger than I thought," William said, studying the evidence. "We need to prepare for what's coming." The autumn breeze rustled through the trees on campus as Malik made his way across the quad. The sound of passionate chanting drew his attention to a growing crowd near the student center. There, standing on a makeshift platform, was a young woman with fierce eyes and an even fiercer voice. "Economic inequality isn't just numbers on a page," she called out, her voice carrying across the gathered students. "It's real people, real lives, real struggles." Malik found himself moving closer, drawn by her powerful presence. The speaker, who he would later learn was Tasha Williams, spoke with a conviction that reminded him of his own past struggles. After the rally dispersed, Malik approached her as she gathered her protest signs. "That was incredible," he said, helping her collect some scattered flyers. "The way you connected statistics to real stories." Tasha smiled, her eyes lighting up. "Thanks. Sometimes people forget there are human beings behind all those numbers." She extended her hand. "I'm Tasha." Their conversation flowed naturally, moving from social justice to their personal experiences. They ended up talking for hours at a nearby coffee shop, discovering shared perspectives despite their different backgrounds. Over the next few weeks, their friendship deepened. Tasha showed Malik parts of himself he'd been avoiding: his heritage, his past, the strength in his journey from the streets to where he was now. "Your story matters," she told him one evening as they sat beneath a sprawling oak tree. "Every part of it made you who you are." Under Tasha's influence, Malik began incorporating his experiences into his engineering projects, focusing on solutions for underserved communities. Their relationship blossomed, filled with deep conversations and shared dreams for making the world better. But then Tasha started getting dizzy spells. At first, they brushed it off as stress from her activist work and studies. When she began having severe headaches and unexplained fatigue, Malik insisted on accompanying her to the doctor. The diagnosis hit like a thunderbolt: an aggressive form of brain cancer, already in advanced stages. The prognosis was measured in months, not years. Malik sat in the sterile hospital room, holding Tasha's hand as the doctor explained treatment options. Her fingers trembled in his, but her voice remained steady as she asked questions about what to expect. "I'm not going anywhere," Malik promised that evening, his heart breaking as he watched her process the news. "We'll face this together." True to his word, Malik balanced his studies with being there for Tasha. He attended her treatments, held her hand through the worst days, and celebrated the good ones. Even as her condition worsened, Tasha's spirit remained undiminished, her passion for justice and equality burning bright. "Promise me you won't let this break you," she whispered during one of her clearer moments. "Promise me you'll keep fighting for what matters." Despite the best medical care, Tasha's condition deteriorated rapidly. She passed away peacefully one spring morning, with Malik by her side. Later that week, Malik sat alone on their favorite park bench, clutching a worn protest sign from their first meeting. The world felt emptier without Tasha's fierce presence, but her words echoed in his mind, reminding him of the strength she'd helped him find in himself. In the dim light of his dorm room, Malik hunched over his desk, surrounded by countless sketches and scattered notes. The soft glow of his computer screen illuminated his tired face as his fingers flew across the keyboard, coding line after line. Empty coffee cups and half-eaten sandwiches littered the space around him, testament to his singular focus. His roommate had long since given up trying to convince him to take breaks, understanding that this project had become more than just schoolwork. On his wall hung a photo of Tasha, her bright smile a constant reminder of why he pushed himself so hard. The AI-driven healthcare system he envisioned might not have saved her, but it could save others. The picture was slightly worn at the corners from the many times he'd touched it for inspiration. Every time exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, he thought of her final days and found renewed energy. "If we'd known sooner," he muttered, adjusting calculations in his diagnostic algorithm. "If we'd just known sooner." His fingers paused briefly over the keyboard as memories washed over him, then resumed their relentless pace with even greater determination. His professors began noticing his dedication. Dr. Chen, his advanced computing instructor, stopped by his workspace one afternoon, examining Malik's preliminary results with growing interest. She spent nearly an hour reviewing his code and asking detailed questions about his methodology. "This is impressive work, Malik," she said, studying his neural network design. "Have you considered presenting this to the Innovation Board? Your approach to pattern recognition is quite unique." Within weeks, Malik found himself preparing for a pitch meeting with potential investors. He refined his presentation, practiced his delivery, and fine-tuned his prototype until every detail was perfect. The morning of the presentation, he arrived early at the conference room, setting up his equipment with trembling hands. His dress shirt was carefully pressed, a small detail that reminded him how far he'd come from his street days. As investors filed in, their expensive suits and scrutinizing gazes making the room feel smaller, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. William Harrington stood there, looking proud and slightly amused at Malik's surprise. He gave a small nod and took a seat at the back of the room, his presence both comforting and nerve-wracking. Malik's presentation flowed smoothly as he demonstrated how his AI system could analyze medical data to identify patterns human doctors might miss. His voice grew stronger with each slide as he showed early testing results, potential applications, and the lives it could save through early detection. The prototype responded flawlessly to his commands, displaying complex analyses in easily digestible graphics. "This technology," Malik explained, his voice steady with conviction, "could revolutionize how we approach disease detection. No more waiting until it's too late. No more families losing loved ones because we didn't catch it in time." His hands gestured passionately as he walked them through a real-world scenario. The investors leaned forward, engaged by his passion and the solid science behind his proposal. Several were already scribbling notes, exchanging meaningful glances. But it was William who spoke first after the presentation concluded, his chair scraping against the floor as he stood. "I'd like to offer full funding for this project," William announced, standing up. "And more importantly, I want to personally mentor its development." His voice carried the weight of someone who recognized not just potential, but purpose. Later, in the mansion's lab, Malik connected his laptop to the main system. The prototype whirred to life, its diagnostic algorithms processing test data with remarkable accuracy. Banks of monitors displayed complex data streams while William watched the results scroll across the screen, his expression thoughtful. The lab's advanced equipment hummed around them, a symphony of possibility. "Tasha would be proud of what you're doing here," William said softly, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder. The gesture carried years of shared understanding. Malik touched the screen where the results showed an early-stage detection that could save a life. "This is just the beginning," he replied, his voice filled with quiet determination. The system continued its work, each calculation bringing them closer to a future where fewer families would face the pain he'd known. The attic of the Harrington mansion was a maze of memories, filled with dusty boxes and forgotten treasures that whispered stories of the past. Malik's footsteps echoed hollowly on the aged wooden floorboards as he searched for the engineering textbook William had mentioned. Sunlight filtered through a small window, casting long shadows across the space and illuminating dancing dust motes in its golden beam. As he moved aside another cardboard box filled with Christmas ornaments, something caught his eye. A worn leather journal tucked between old photo albums bound in faded blue cloth. The spine was cracked from frequent use and the pages had yellowed with age, their edges softly frayed. Malik carefully opened it, recognizing William's precise, slanted handwriting immediately. The first entry was dated 25 years ago, the ink slightly faded but still clearly legible. Malik settled onto an old steamer trunk covered with travel stickers and began reading, drawn in by the raw emotion evident in the words. "Richard showed up at the lab again today, pacing like a caged animal. Says he wants to be part of the company, but I can't trust him. Not after what happened with Dad's inheritance. The look in his eyes tells me everything I need to know." Entry after entry revealed a disturbing pattern of betrayal. Richard, William's younger brother, had repeatedly tried to undermine William's success through increasingly desperate schemes. One particularly painful entry described how Richard had attempted to sell William's early patents to competitors, his words sharp with hurt. Found the copied blueprints hidden in Richard's apartment, stuffed between old magazines. He was going to sell them to Matthews Industries for a fraction of their worth. My own brother. I confronted him, but he just laughed that bitter laugh of his. Said I always got everything handed to me, that it was his turn, as if I hadn't worked every weekend for the past 5 years. Malik's fingers trembled slightly as he turned the delicate pages, careful not to tear them. The bitter rivalry between the brothers seemed to consume every entry, poisoning their relationship like a slow-acting venom. William wrote about Richard's growing resentment, their parents' futile attempts to mediate the situation, and the final explosive confrontation that led to their permanent estrangement. Then something clicked in Malik's mind like the final piece of a complex puzzle. The timing of the recent attacks on Harrington Industries, the insider knowledge they revealed, it all pointed to someone who knew the company intimately from its earliest days. Someone like Richard. An entry from 15 years ago caught his attention, the words underlined several times in frustration. "Richard's working with Innovex now. Claims he's finally made it on his own, but I know better. He's just waiting for another chance to strike. I can feel it in my bones." Malik closed the journal with gentle reverence, his heart heavy with the weight of this discovery. The pieces fit together too perfectly to ignore. Richard's connection to Innovex, the company's recent troubles, David's unexpected betrayal. It formed a clear pattern of revenge decades in the making, carefully orchestrated and patiently executed. He made his way down the grand staircase to the library, where William was reviewing company reports at his antique mahogany desk. The afternoon sun streamed through tall windows, casting a warm glow over the room's rich wooden furnishings and leather-bound books. Malik placed the journal on the table between them, watching as recognition dawned in William's eyes. "There's something you need to tell me about your brother," Malik said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper in the hushed room. William's face darkened as he recognized the journal, his fingers tensing around his silver pen until his knuckles turned white. The weight of unspoken words hung heavy in the air between them, thick with decades of pain and regret. William sat heavily in his leather armchair, the weathered journal resting like a physical weight between them. His fingers traced the worn edges and yellowed pages as he began to speak, his voice carrying years of buried pain and regret that seemed to fill the quiet study. Richard was always brilliant just like me, but where I saw opportunities to create, he saw chances to take. When our parents died in that accident, they left the seed money for my first company to both of us. Richard wanted to use it for quick profits in the stock market, but I had bigger dreams. Dreams of changing the world. Malik listened intently from his perch on the ottoman, studying William's face as the older man described how the brothers' relationship had slowly crumbled. Richard had attempted to sell William's early patents behind his back, believing he deserved an equal share of the success, despite contributing nothing to the innovations that had launched Harrington Technologies. "I thought I'd put it all behind me," William said, rubbing his temples with trembling fingers. But Richard, he never let go of his anger. It's eaten away at him all these years. "We need to confront him," Malik said firmly, leaning forward. "These attacks won't stop until we deal with this directly. He's already tried to sabotage 3 major projects." William shook his head, his shoulders slumping. "Richard's not reasonable. He never was. Even as children, he'd rather break his toys than share them." "Maybe not," Malik pressed, his voice gentle but determined. "But ignoring him hasn't worked either. We need to face this head-on before someone gets hurt." After hours of tense discussion that stretched late into the evening, William finally agreed. Through their business connections, they located Richard at his private estate outside the city. The meeting was arranged for the following afternoon, though William's apprehension was visible in every line of his face. Richard's estate was a stark contrast to the warmth of the Harrington mansion, all cold steel and sharp angles, with modernist sculptures dotting the manicured grounds. As they were led into a minimalist sitting room by a stone-faced butler, Malik noticed how Richard's features mirrored William's, though twisted with bitterness that had carved deep lines around his mouth and eyes. "Well, well," Richard said, his smile not reaching his eyes as he stood near a wall of windows. "The prodigal brother and his chosen heir, how touching." "Enough games, Richard," William replied, his voice steady despite his clenched jaw. "We know you're behind the attacks on the company. The evidence leads straight to you." Richard's carefully constructed facade cracked slightly. "Games? You want to talk about games, William? How about the game where you took everything that should have been ours and made it yours alone? Where you played the perfect son while I was cast aside?" "I built that company from nothing," William started, color rising in his cheeks. "You built it with our parents' money," Richard snapped, slamming his hand against his desk. "Money that was meant for both of us. But you always had to be the star, didn't you? The genius inventor, the visionary leader. Poor Richard just wasn't good enough for the family legacy." Malik watched the exchange carefully from his position near the door, noting how years of resentment had poisoned Richard's perspective. Where William saw hard work and innovation, Richard saw only theft and betrayal. The truth lay somewhere in between, buried under decades of hurt feelings and miscommunication. "You had every opportunity to succeed on your own," William said quietly, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Instead, you chose to destroy what others built." Richard's laugh was hollow, echoing off the bare walls. "Destroy? I'm taking back what should have been mine from the beginning, and neither you nor your street rat son can stop me." William's hands clenched into fists at the insult to Malik, but he maintained his composure with visible effort. The meeting continued in circles of accusation and denial for another hour, with neither brother willing to yield an inch of ground. As they left the estate, Malik turned to William in the car's leather back seat. "He's not going to stop unless we stop him first. We need a plan." William nodded, his expression hardening with resolve as their driver pulled away from the gates. The private dining room at Le Méridien hummed with tension as William and Malik arrived. Richard was already seated, his fingers drumming against the pristine white tablecloth, his expensive watch catching the light with each nervous tap. The restaurant's soft lighting and elegant decor, with its crystal chandeliers and mahogany panels, seemed at odds with the brewing storm between the brothers. "I appreciate you agreeing to meet again," William said stiffly, taking his seat and smoothing his tie with slightly trembling hands. Malik positioned himself between the two men, a calculated choice that didn't go unnoticed by either brother. The young man's shoulders were tense with anticipation. Richard's lip curled, his face a mask of barely contained bitterness. "Let's skip the pleasantries. What could you possibly have to say that wasn't said yesterday?" The words hung sharp and heavy in the air. Before William could respond with equal hostility, Malik cleared his throat. His heart pounded, but his voice remained steady. "Maybe we could start by understanding each other's perspectives better. Richard, you mentioned feeling like you lost something that was rightfully yours." Richard's eyes narrowed at Malik's intervention, but something in the young man's earnest tone made him pause. His fingers stopped their restless movement. "You want to understand? Try growing up in the shadow of the great William Harrington. Every achievement, every success, it all belonged to him." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. "That's not fair," William protested, his hands clenching into fists beneath the table. "I worked hard for everything I built." "You worked hard?" Richard's voice rose, causing a nearby water glass to vibrate. "While you were working hard, I was invisible. To our parents, to our teachers, to everyone. The brilliant older brother and his disappointing shadow." Decades of resentment colored every syllable. Malik watched as William's defensive posture softened slightly, his shoulders dropping. I never knew you felt that way," William admitted quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "How could you know? You were too busy changing the world to notice anything else." Richard's words carried decades of pain, each one landing like a physical blow. "When our parents died, that money was meant for both of us. But you took control, just like always." William was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the untouched water glass before him. "You're right," he finally said, surprising both Richard and Malik. "I was so focused on my goals, my vision. I never stopped to consider how it affected you. I should have included you more. Should have been a better brother," Malik finished gently, his words bridging the gulf between them. "Just like both of you can be better brothers now." Richard scoffed, but there was less venom in it. His fingers traced the rim of his water glass absently. "It's not that simple." "No, it's not," Malik agreed, leaning forward slightly. "But destroying Harrington Industries won't heal old wounds. It'll just create new ones. And not just for William, but for all the employees who depend on their jobs, the communities our charitable foundation supports." The brothers fell silent, absorbing Malik's words. The tension in the room began to shift from hostile to contemplative, like storm clouds gradually dispersing. "A truce," Richard finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll call off the attacks, but don't expect us to be one big happy family." His jaw remained tight, but some of the darkness had left his eyes. William nodded solemnly. "That's fair. We can start there." His voice carried a mix of relief and regret. As they prepared to leave, Richard paused at the door, his hand resting on the polished handle. His expression was still guarded, but the burning anger had dimmed to smoldering embers. Malik watched the brothers' careful distance, noting how they moved like wary planets in distant orbits, knowing there was still much work to be done to heal their relationship. The mansion's grand dining room felt oddly small and confining. As Richard stepped inside, his shoulders tense and his expression guarded like a man entering unfamiliar territory. William stood awkwardly by the head of the ornate mahogany table, gesturing to an elaborately set place setting with fine china and polished silverware that gleamed under the chandelier. "Please sit wherever you'd like," William offered, his voice carrying a forced casualness that barely masked his nervousness. Richard chose a seat halfway down the table, not too close but not pointedly distant either, a diplomatic choice that spoke volumes. Malik bustled in from the kitchen, carrying a steaming dish of pasta that filled the room with the rich aroma of herbs and garlic. "I hope everyone likes Italian," Malik said cheerfully, breaking the stilted silence with his characteristic warmth. William mentioned it was a family favorite growing up. Richard's eyebrows lifted slightly, a crack appearing in his stern facade. "Mother's Sunday dinners," he said quietly, nostalgia creeping into his voice. She always made that sauce from scratch, wouldn't even consider using store-bought ingredients. The one with the fresh basil, William added, his voice softening at the memory, tension draining from his shoulders. Remember how she'd send us to the garden to pick it? She was so particular about which leaves to choose. And you always managed to trample half her flowers getting there, Richard replied, a ghost of amusement crossing his face as years momentarily fell away. She'd lecture you for hours about her precious roses. Malik seized the opening like a lifeline. William's still terrible with plants. You should see what he did to the greenhouse last month. Nearly killed an entire crop of experimental tomatoes with his improved watering system. The conversation began to flow more naturally as they shared their meal, the familiar comfort of food working its subtle magic. Malik carefully steered the discussion toward neutral territory, asking questions about their childhood neighborhood and their first cars, each story drawing out another shared memory. After dinner, William hesitated before speaking, fingers fidgeting with his napkin. "I've been working on something in the lab. Would you like to see it? It's right up your alley." Richard's initial instinct was to refuse, years of practice distance rising up, but curiosity won out. "What kind of project?" he asked. Professional interest piqued despite himself. In the laboratory, William pulled up some blueprints on a holographic display, the blue light casting ethereal shadows. "It's a new type of solar cell, but I'm having trouble with the energy transfer efficiency. The conversion rate isn't where it needs to be." Richard studied the diagrams, his engineering background immediately spotting several potential improvements. His eyes lit up with familiar enthusiasm. "Have you considered adjusting the panel configuration? If you rotate these elements and modify the collection surface?" William listened intently as Richard explained his thoughts, occasionally nodding and making notes on his tablet. For the first time in decades, the brothers found themselves engaged in a genuine discussion, their shared technical knowledge creating a bridge across the chasm between them. Malik watched from the doorway, careful not to interrupt the moment, hope blooming in his chest. He saw Richard's posture gradually relax as William asked follow-up questions and incorporated his suggestions, the years of distance temporarily forgotten in their shared enthusiasm. Later, as they gathered in the study for coffee and dessert, Malik shared a story about his latest college mishap involving a malfunctioning prototype and a very surprised professor who ended up wearing half of his experimental fuel mixture. The tale drew a reluctant smile from Richard, the first genuine one of the evening, crinkling the corners of his eyes. William caught the expression, and something in his chest loosened, a knot of tension he'd carried for so long he'd almost forgotten it was there. He watched his brother's face, seeing past the years of bitterness to glimpses of the boy who had once been his closest companion, and allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, some bridges could be rebuilt. The grand auditorium buzzed with anticipation as Malik Johnson stepped onto the stage. His confident stride betrayed no hint of the nervous energy coursing through him. The spotlight illuminated his face as he gazed out at the sea of expectant faces. Doctors, tech innovators, and industry leaders from around the world, all gathered to witness what promised to be a groundbreaking presentation. In the front row, William sat with perfect posture, his eyes fixed on Malik. Pride swelled in his chest as his son began to speak, remembering the timid young man who'd first walked into his office just a few years ago. 2 years ago, I lost someone special to a rare disease that went undiagnosed until it was too late, Malik began, his voice steady and clear despite the emotion behind his words. Today, I want to show you how we can prevent such tragedies from happening to other families. The holographic display behind him came to life, showcasing the intricate web of his AI diagnostic system. The blue-tinted projections cast a soft glow across the stage as Malik walked the audience through the technology's capabilities, explaining how it could analyze countless medical data points simultaneously to identify patterns human doctors might miss. His hands moved expressively as he pointed out key features. "This isn't just about diagnosis," Malik continued, demonstrating a real-time simulation that filled the air with dancing data points. The AI learns from each case, constantly improving its accuracy and expanding its knowledge base. Every patient helps make the system stronger for those who come after. The audience leaned forward in their seats as Malik showed early trial results, cases where the AI had successfully identified rare conditions months before traditional methods would have caught them. Gasps of amazement filled the room when he revealed the system's 97% accuracy rate, and several doctors in the front rows began furiously taking notes. When Malik concluded his presentation, the applause was deafening. The entire audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to shake the building's foundation, and William's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he clapped harder than anyone, his usually composed demeanor cracking with pure joy. During the following reception in the elegant hall next door, investors swarmed around Malik like moths to a flame. Representatives from major health organizations pressed their cards into his hands, eager to discuss implementation possibilities. A delegate from the World Health Organization, her gray suit crisp and professional, spoke passionately about bringing the technology to underserved regions. "Your work could revolutionize healthcare in developing nations," she explained, her eyes bright with excitement. "We have communities that have never even seen a doctor. Imagine what this could do for them." William watched from nearby as Malik handled each conversation with grace and wisdom beyond his years, seamlessly switching between technical discussions and humanitarian concerns. When the crowd finally thinned, he approached his son, noticing the slight fatigue around his eyes that only a father would catch. "I'm doubling our initial investment," William announced, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder with gentle pride. "Whatever you need to make this global, you'll have it. No restrictions." Malik's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you sure? The amount we discussed was already substantial. That's a huge commitment." "I've never been more sure of anything," William replied firmly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Before they could discuss further details, Malik's phone rang with perfect timing. The caller ID displayed International Medical Foundation in bright letters. He glanced at William, who nodded encouragingly, already knowing this would be another step forward. Malik answered the call, his expression brightening as he listened to the voice on the other end. "Yes, I would be very interested in collaboration," he said, looking at William with undisguised excitement. "Let's make it happen. The sooner we can help people, the better." Malik's heart dropped as he read the urgent email on his screen. The message from his development team was clear and devastating. Someone had stolen the core algorithms of their AI diagnostic system, the very heart of their groundbreaking medical technology. His hands trembled slightly as he dialed Sophia's number, his mind racing through the potential consequences of this breach. "Someone's taken the code," he said without preamble when she answered, his voice tight with tension. "I need your help. It's bad." Sophia arrived at the office within an hour, her laptop tucked under her arm and determination written across her face. The development team huddled in the conference room, faces pale with worry, their usual energetic chatter replaced by nervous whispers. Investors would be calling soon, demanding explanations, and Malik could already feel the weight of those difficult conversations pressing down on him. "Show me the system logs," Sophia requested, her fingers flying across the keyboard with practiced precision. Malik watched as she dove deep into the network traffic, tracing the data breach, her expression growing more focused with each passing minute. After several tense hours of investigation, during which the team barely breathed, Sophia looked up from her screen. "Malik, you need to see this." She turned her screen toward him, showing a series of suspicious file transfers highlighted in red. These came from Derek's workstation, all unauthorized, all after hours. Malik felt his stomach twist into painful knots. Derek had been with the project since the beginning, helping design crucial components of the AI's architecture. They'd shared countless late nights and breakthrough moments together. The evidence was clear: late-night access, unusual data transfers, and encrypted communications with an external server that had no business connection to their work. "I can trace where the data went," Sophia said, her expression grim as she pulled up another screen of data. "He sold it to Tech Vision Corp. They're working on a similar project, and based on these timestamps, they've already started integrating our code." Malik called Derek into his office, trying to maintain his composure despite the anger and disappointment churning inside him. When confronted with the evidence, Derek's facade crumbled quickly, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his actions. "My mother needed expensive surgery," Derek confessed, his voice breaking as tears welled in his eyes. "Tech Vision offered enough to cover it. I didn't know what else to do. The insurance wouldn't cover it, and she was getting worse." "You could have come to me," Malik replied, his voice hard but tinged with sadness. "We take care of our team here. We would have found a way to help. Instead, you've betrayed everyone's trust and put years of work at risk." While Malik dealt with Derek, Sophia worked her technical magic, her determination matching the urgency of the situation. She managed to trace and recover most of the stolen code before Tech Vision could fully implement it. She also found proof of the transaction, emails, bank transfers, and meeting recordings that left no doubt about Derek's guilt and provided crucial evidence for their legal team. Malik gathered his team to address the crisis, standing before them with a mix of gravity and reassurance. "I've already contacted the authorities," he announced, meeting each person's eyes. "Derek will face consequences. But our priority now is securing our systems and reassuring our investors. We're stronger than this setback." The team worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination, implementing new security protocols and documenting everything for the inevitable legal proceedings. When morning came, sunlight streaming through the office windows, Malik made the necessary calls to their investors, being transparent about what happened while emphasizing their swift response and the measures taken to prevent future breaches. To his relief, most investors appreciated his honest approach and quick action. His leadership during the crisis had actually strengthened their confidence in him, turning a potential disaster into a demonstration of the company's resilience. After Derek was escorted from the building by security, his desk already cleared of personal items, Malik sat with Sophia in his office, both exhausted but relieved. The morning light cast long shadows across the floor, marking the end of one of the longest nights of their careers. "This was a setback, not the end," Malik told her firmly, his determination unshaken despite the betrayal. His eyes held the same fierce vision that had driven him since the project's beginning, now tempered by hard-earned wisdom. The gleaming conference room buzzed with anticipation as Malik Johnson stood at the podium, his posture radiating quiet confidence despite the butterflies in his stomach. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the Malik Tech logo behind him in shades of blue and silver. William sat in the front row, beaming with pride as investors and media representatives filled every seat, their notepads and tablets at the ready. "Today we're not just launching a company," Malik began, his voice steady and clear, carrying to every corner of the packed room. "We're beginning a journey to transform healthcare through artificial intelligence." He gestured to the holographic display showing their AI diagnostic system in action, its intricate web of neural networks pulsing with life. Every day, countless lives are lost to diseases that could have been treated if caught earlier. Our technology will change that, bringing hope to families around the world. The investors leaned forward, captivated by Malik's presentation of concrete solutions backed by impressive data. His passion was infectious as he outlined Malik Tech's roadmap, emphasizing their commitment to accessibility and ethical innovation. The graphs and charts told a compelling story of potential growth and social impact. In the weeks that followed, Malik proved himself a natural leader, exceeding even William's highest expectations. He assembled a diverse team of brilliant minds, creating an environment where creativity flourished alongside mutual respect. During morning meetings, he made sure every voice was heard, from senior developers to junior interns, often drawing out valuable insights from unexpected sources. William's role shifted smoothly from mentor to advisor, a transition that filled him with quiet satisfaction. During their weekly strategy sessions, they sat as equals in William's corner office, debating ideas and sharing insights over cups of strong coffee. When Malik faced his first major challenge, a critical software deployment falling behind schedule, William resisted the urge to step in and fix things, knowing this was a crucial test of leadership. Instead, he watched proudly as Malik gathered his team in the main conference room, reorganized priorities, and got the project back on track without compromising quality. The young CEO's ability to balance technical expertise with emotional intelligence impressed even the most skeptical board members who had initially questioned his readiness for such responsibility. "You've got to see this," Malik told William one afternoon, his eyes bright with excitement as he led him to the development floor. Engineers were celebrating their first successful integration with a major hospital's systems, their cheers echoing through the open workspace. Real patient data was flowing through their AI, generating accurate diagnoses faster than traditional methods, marking a turning point in their mission. The milestone attracted attention from healthcare providers worldwide, leading to a flood of inquiries and partnership opportunities. During a particularly tense negotiation with a global healthcare network, Malik demonstrated his growing business acumen in the boardroom. He stood firm on ethical considerations while showing flexibility on implementation timelines, his diplomatic approach ultimately securing Malik Tech's first major contract worth millions. That evening, Malik and William stood on the office balcony, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold and crimson. The gentle breeze carried the promise of spring, matching the sense of new beginnings below. The streetlights were beginning to twinkle on one by one like stars emerging at dusk. "You've built something extraordinary," William said, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't be prouder of what you've accomplished." Malik smiled, thinking of the long journey that had brought them here, from those first uncertain days to this moment of triumph. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied, his words carrying the weight of deep gratitude and respect. The morning sun streamed through the mansion's tall windows, casting a warm glow across the breakfast nook. William sat in his favorite chair, a plush leather seat that had molded to his form over countless mornings, sipping coffee and reading the latest Malik Tech headlines on his tablet. Pride swelled in his chest as he scanned an article about their AI's recent breakthrough in early cancer detection. The technology they developed could save millions of lives, and he couldn't help but smile at the thought. Suddenly, a sharp pain gripped his chest, radiating down his left arm like a bolt of lightning. The tablet slipped from his trembling fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor with a sound that echoed through the quiet room. William clutched at his shirt, his breathing becoming labored and shallow, each gasp a struggle against the vice-like pressure in his chest. Malik, who had been reviewing quarterly reports in the adjacent study, heard the noise and rushed in. His heart stopped at the sight of William slumped over, face contorted in pain, his normally composed features twisted in agony. "Dad!" Malik was at his side in an instant, phone already in hand, dialing emergency services. "Stay with me. Help is coming." His voice remained steady despite the fear coursing through him, years of handling crises in the tech world kicking in automatically. The wait for the ambulance felt endless, each minute stretching like hours. Malik held William's hand, monitoring his breathing and pulse just as he'd learned from his AI research, silently thanking whatever force had led him to study medical applications. When the paramedics arrived, they worked swiftly, praising Malik's quick response and calm demeanor in the crisis. At the hospital, Malik paced the sterile waiting room, his designer shoes wearing a path in the industrial carpet as his mind racing through memories of their years together. The street-smart orphan he'd been seemed a lifetime ago, a different person entirely. William had given him more than just opportunities. He'd given him love, guidance, and unwavering support, transforming a scared kid into the man he'd become. The doctor finally emerged, her expression serious but hopeful, clipboard held close to her chest. "Mr. Harrington is stable," she explained, her voice carrying the practiced calm of someone used to delivering life-changing news. "The heart attack was severe, but we were able to perform emergency surgery successfully. The next 48 hours will be critical." Over the following weeks, Malik practically lived at the hospital, sleeping in an uncomfortable recliner and surviving on vending machine coffee. He arranged for the best cardiac specialists, coordinated with William's medical team, and ensured every detail of his care was perfect, down to the thread count of the hospital sheets. Malik Tech could wait. His father needed him more than any business ever could. During those quiet hospital hours, their conversations grew deeper, more meaningful than ever before. William, still weak but improving, shared his fears one evening as the sunset painted the hospital room in shades of orange and gold. "I'm scared of leaving you too soon," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, fingers fidgeting with the edge of his blanket. "There's still so much I want to see you accomplish." Malik squeezed his hand gently, fighting back the emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "You've given me everything, Dad. More than I ever dreamed possible. But this isn't the end. We've got years ahead of us. Decades of innovations and breakthroughs to celebrate together." As William grew stronger, their bond deepened through the recovery process. Malik learned to help with physical therapy exercises, mastering each movement alongside the therapists. He monitored medication schedules with the precision of a Swiss watch and made sure William followed every dietary restriction, no matter how much he grumbled about the bland hospital food or longed for his morning coffee. When William was finally cleared to return home, Malik had already transformed part of the mansion into a recovery suite, complete with state-of-the-art medical equipment and a dedicated nurses' station. He coordinated with his team at Malik Tech to work remotely, determined to be there for every step of William's recovery, every small victory and setback. On a mild afternoon, they took their first walk in the mansion's garden, where spring flowers were just beginning to bloom. William moved slowly, leaning slightly on Malik's arm as they passed blooming rose bushes and carefully tended hedges, the sweet scent of flowers filling the air around them. "I didn't think I'd get another chance to see you change the world," William said, pausing to catch his breath near a stone bench, his voice thick with emotion. Malik's response was immediate and firm, his eyes bright with determination. "You're not going anywhere. We're doing this together, just like we always have." The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Harrington Mansion's wraparound porch as William sat in his favorite rocking chair, its familiar creaks a comfort after weeks away. The garden before him bloomed with vibrant colors, purple coneflowers, golden black-eyed Susans, and deep red roses, a stark contrast to the sterile hospital rooms he'd recently left behind. His hands rested on the weathered oak armrests, steadier now than they'd been in weeks, though still bearing the faint marks of IV needles. Malik approached with measured steps, carrying a steaming cup of herbal tea in William's favorite ceramic mug, the one with tiny blueprints printed around its rim. "Your afternoon brew, sir," he said with an exaggerated butler's accent, complete with a slight bow that drew a warm chuckle from William. "I never thought I'd miss this view so much," William mused, accepting the cup and breathing in the soothing chamomile aroma. His voice carried a weight of contemplation that made Malik pause, recognizing the familiar tone his father used before important conversations. "Well, the garden missed you too. The roses were practically wilting from loneliness," Malik quipped, settling into the chair beside him. The wooden slats creaked beneath him as he adjusted his position. William's eyes grew distant, focusing on the horizon where the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "I came so close to losing all of this. To losing you." "Dad, don't—" "No, let me finish," William interrupted gently, his fingers tightening around the warm mug. "The doctors told me everything you did, how you practically moved into the hospital, canceled your meetings, researched every medication they prescribed, even argued with Dr. Stevens about the blood pressure medication." Malik shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the wood creaking beneath him. Anyone would have done the same. "No, they wouldn't have," William said firmly, turning to face his son. "You vetted every specialist personally, stayed up nights monitoring my vital signs. The head nurse told me you even learned all the physical therapy exercises yourself to make sure they were being done correctly. She said you practiced them for hours until you got them perfect." Tears welled in William's eyes as he continued, his voice growing thick with emotion. "You put your entire life on hold. Malik Tech, your projects, everything, even that solar panel innovation you were so excited about. You're more important than any project," Malik said simply, his dark eyes reflecting the sincerity of his words. William placed his tea on the small table between them and reached for a worn leather portfolio he'd kept hidden beside his chair. "I've been thinking a lot during my recovery. About legacy, about the future, about what truly matters." He opened the portfolio, revealing official documents marked with the distinctive Harrington Industries letterhead. "I want you to take over Harrington Industries." Malik's eyes widened, his hands gripping the armrests. "Dad, you don't have to." "I want to," William insisted, his voice stronger now. "You've more than proven yourself, not just as a businessman but as a son. It's time for me to step back to watch you lead both companies into the future. You have the vision and the heart to do it." William's hands trembled slightly as he reached into the portfolio again, this time pulling out a yellowed, carefully preserved blueprint, its edges soft from years of handling. "This was my first real invention, the water purifier that started everything, the one I sketched out on my mother's kitchen table." He held it out to Malik. "It belongs to you now." Malik stared at the blueprint, understanding the magnitude of what William was offering. More than just paper and ink, it was the physical embodiment of William's trust, his legacy, and his love. The careful pencil lines and notation spoke of dreams that had built an empire. "I promise to honor everything you've built," Malik said softly, accepting the blueprint with reverent hands, his fingers tracing the faded pencil marks of his father's younger self. The crumbling brick facade of the old community center loomed before Malik as he stood on the worn sidewalk of his childhood neighborhood. The paint was peeling, windows were boarded up, and weeds pushed through cracks in the concrete steps. Faded graffiti marked the walls like old scars, telling stories of years of neglect. Yet in his mind's eye, he could still see the place as it had been, a sanctuary where he'd spent countless hours tinkering with discarded electronics and dreaming of changing the world. He walked closer, touching the rough brick wall, his fingers tracing the familiar patterns. Memories washed over him. The kind janitor who'd let him stay late to work on his projects, the corner table where he'd dissected old radios, the shelf that had held his first successful repair job, a vintage clock that still kept perfect time. The musty scent of the building brought back afternoons spent hunched over circuit boards, learning through trial and error. "This place gave me hope when I had nothing else," Malik murmured to himself, his voice thick with emotion. The decision crystallized in his mind with sudden clarity. He pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant. "Get me the property records for 1256 Harrison Street. I want to know who owns it and what it would take to buy it. And set up a meeting with our architects. I have a vision for this place." Within weeks, Malik's team had transformed the space. Gone were the broken windows and crumbling walls, replaced by sleek glass panels and modern architecture that somehow preserved the building's historic character. Solar panels gleamed on the roof, symbolizing the bridge between past and future. The interior underwent an even more dramatic metamorphosis. State-of-the-art computers lined the walls where old books had once sat. 3D printers hummed in rooms that had previously gathered dust. A massive makerspace occupied the former gymnasium, filled with tools and equipment for young innovators. Malik walked through the halls, reviewing final preparations for the launch event. His footsteps echoed on the polished concrete floors as he checked each detail with meticulous care. Each classroom had been designed with a specific focus: coding, robotics, electrical engineering, and digital design. But his favorite space was the Tinker Lab, a room dedicated to taking things apart and putting them back together, just as he had done as a child. He'd made sure to stock it with both cutting-edge technology and old electronics, believing that understanding the basics was crucial. "Mr. Johnson," his project manager called out, clipboard in hand, "the first group of students is arriving." Malik watched as children filed into the building, their eyes wide with wonder. He recognized the look on their faces, the same one he'd worn when discovering how things worked for the first time. A few of them whispered and pointed at the sleek equipment, while others stood in awe of the massive screens displaying interactive projects. Standing before them in the main hall, he began to share his story. "I was just like you," he told them, gesturing to the renovated space around them, his voice warm and encouraging. "Right here in this building, I learned that anything is possible if you're willing to work for it. Some of you might become engineers, others might create the next breakthrough in artificial intelligence. But whatever path you choose, this center is here to help you reach your dreams. Every single one of you has the potential to change the world." The children listened intently as Malik described his journey from the streets to success. He showed them the old clock he'd repaired years ago, now displayed prominently in the entrance hall as a reminder of where it all began. The timepiece sat in a custom-built case, still ticking away the minutes with perfect precision. Later that afternoon, Malik stood outside the center, watching as excited children entered and exited the building. Some carried their first coding projects. Others clutched robots they'd begun assembling. Their enthusiasm was infectious, their potential unlimited. Parents gathered nearby, sharing knowing looks as their children bubbled over with stories about what they'd learned. As he observed their joy and determination, Malik knew he had done more than just renovate a building. He had created a launching pad for the next generation of dreamers and innovators. The old community center had once saved him. Now it would help save others. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, its crisp white envelope standing out among the usual business correspondence on Malik's desk. His hands trembled slightly as he read the return address, Johnson Family Trust. The morning sunlight streaming through his office windows seemed to highlight the words like a spotlight. Inside, he found a carefully worded note from his Aunt Sarah, his mother's younger sister, expressing a desire to reconnect and make amends for the past. The paper felt delicate between his fingers, as if it might crumble under the weight of its significance. Malik sat in his office staring at the letter for what felt like hours. Memories he'd long buried began to surface, the confusion and hurt of being left alone after his mother's death, the cold silence from relatives who should have been there. The familiar ache in his chest returned with each remembered slight. He drove to the mansion seeking William's counsel, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. William listened intently as Malik shared the contents of the letter, his expression thoughtful. They sat in the library, where so many of their important conversations had taken place over the years. The leather chairs creaked softly as they settled in, surrounded by the comforting smell of old books and polished wood. "What do you think I should do?" Malik asked, his voice uncertain, fingers fidgeting with the letter's edge. William leaned forward in his chair, his eyes reflecting years of hard-earned wisdom. "The decision is yours, son, but sometimes the hardest bridges to build are the most important ones. You've taught me that." A week later, Malik found himself sitting in a private room at an upscale restaurant, waiting. His reflection in the window showed a man both composed and nervous. His Aunt Sarah arrived first, followed by his Uncle James and two cousins he barely remembered. The initial moments were awkward, filled with hesitant smiles and uncertain glances, the clinking of water glasses providing background noise to their tentative greetings. Sarah spoke first, her voice thick with emotion, hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Malik, we can never undo what we did, or rather what we failed to do. After your mother died, we were struggling ourselves. We were scared, selfish, and wrong." James added, running a hand through his graying hair. "We told ourselves someone else would step in, that you'd be better off with proper authorities. We've carried that shame for years." Malik listened as they shared their story, of their own poverty, their fears of taking on another mouth to feed, their subsequent regret when they learned he'd been living on the streets. Their words were punctuated by tears and trembling hands, each confession seeming to age them before his eyes. When they finished, Malik gestured to William, who had been sitting quietly nearby, a steady presence throughout the emotional exchange. "This is William Harrington," he said. "He's my father, not by blood, but by choice and love. He saved my life by believing in me when no one else would." William stepped forward, shaking hands with each family member, his quiet dignity filling the room. "Malik has been the greatest gift of my life," he said simply. "He's changed not just my world, but the worlds of countless others through his work and his heart." Sarah wiped tears from her eyes as she looked between Malik and William, her makeup slightly smudged. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being there when we weren't, for giving him the love and support he deserved." The conversation continued, moving between past hurts and present healing. Malik shared stories of his journey, of the community center he'd renovated, of his work in AI healthcare. His relatives listened with a mixture of pride and regret, seeing the remarkable man he'd become despite their absence. The afternoon light softened as they talked, casting a warm glow over their gathering. As the meeting drew to a close, Sarah pulled Malik into a tight embrace, her perfume bringing back distant memories of his mother. His cousins followed suit, and even James, usually stoic, hugged him with tears in his eyes. The weight of unspoken words and unresolved pain began to lift, like clouds parting after a storm. William placed a gentle hand on Malik's shoulder as they watched his biological family depart, their figures growing smaller in the distance. "You've built bridges where I thought none could exist," he said softly. "That's your greatest strength." The setting sun painted the sky in shades of hope, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The grand hall of the Stockholm Concert House buzzed with anticipation. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting a warm glow over the distinguished audience, while dust motes danced in the golden beams. Malik Johnson stood at the side of the stage, his heart beating steadily as he watched the Nobel Committee chairman approach the podium, his polished shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. William sat in the front row, his eyes glistening with pride, the lines around them crinkling with joy. Next to him, Sophia squeezed his hand, both of them sharing knowing looks about how far Malik had come. Her emerald dress sparkled in the sunlight. The rest of the audience was filled with world leaders, renowned scientists, and healthcare pioneers who had gathered to witness this historic moment, their excited whispers creating a gentle murmur throughout the hall. The chairman's voice echoed through the hall, rich and dignified. For his groundbreaking work in artificial intelligence-driven healthcare diagnostics, which has saved millions of lives worldwide, the Nobel Prize in Medicine is awarded to Dr. Malik Johnson. As Malik stepped onto the stage, memories flooded his mind. The cold nights in the alley where William first found him, huddled against the bitter wind, the countless hours in the mansion's laboratory perfecting their innovations, the setbacks and triumphs that had shaped his journey. His hands were steady as he accepted the medal and certificate, feeling their weight and significance. Standing at the podium, Malik's voice carried clear and strong through the hall, each word measured and heartfelt. 20 years ago, I was a homeless boy tinkering with broken electronics in an alley, dreaming of making a difference. Today I stand before you because one man chose to see potential where others saw nothing. He paused, looking directly at William, whose eyes never left his son's face. My father, William Harrington, taught me that innovation without compassion is meaningless. Every breakthrough we've achieved at Malik Tech began with a simple question. How can we help those who need it most? His voice cracked slightly as he continued, fingers gripping the podium's edge. The AI systems we've developed have made early disease detection accessible to communities that never had such resources before, bringing hope where there was none. The audience listened intently as Malik shared stories of lives transformed by their technology. Children diagnosed before illnesses became terminal, remote villages receiving world-class medical care through AI assistance, and countless families spared the pain he had known in losing his mother. Each story touched hearts and reminded everyone present of technology's power to change lives. This award belongs to every dreamer who refuses to let circumstances define their future, Malik said, his words resonating through the hall like a bell of hope. It belongs to every mentor who takes a chance on someone others have overlooked. And most of all, it belongs to my father, William, who showed me that family isn't about blood. It's about love, belief, and the courage to lift others up when they've fallen. The audience rose in a standing ovation, many wiping tears from their eyes. Papers rustled and chairs scraped against the floor as people stood. William stood proudly, his face showing all the love and pride a father could possess, his shoulders straight despite their slight trembling. As the applause continued, filling the hall with thunderous appreciation, Malik descended the stage steps and made his way to William. They embraced tightly, the medal pressed between them, neither caring about the hundreds of eyes watching their moment. "This is as much yours as it is mine," Malik said softly, his voice thick with emotion. William shook his head, his voice catching as tears finally spilled down his cheeks. "No, son. This is your legacy. the one you built with your own hands and heart. The Harrington Industries boardroom hummed with nervous energy as William stood at the head of the long mahogany table. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the faces of 24 board members who sat in anticipation, their leather chairs creaking softly with each subtle movement. Malik stood beside his father, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that highlighted his transformation from street-smart orphan to polished executive, his posture confident yet humble. "For 35 years I've had the privilege of leading this company," William began, his voice steady and clear, resonating through the hushed room. "Today I'm announcing my retirement, effective at the end of the month." A murmur rippled through the room like a wave. "And I'm proud to introduce your new CEO, my son, Malik Johnson." His chest swelled with pride as he spoke those words. Several board members shifted in their seats, exchanging meaningful glances. Thomas Bradford, the eldest member with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, cleared his throat. "With all due respect, William, Malik is quite young. Are we certain he's ready for such responsibility?" His tone carried decades of corporate wisdom and a hint of skepticism. William's eyes crinkled with knowing confidence, the same look he wore when closing his biggest deals. Malik has proven himself not just through his success with Malik Tech, but through his innovative vision and leadership abilities. The Nobel Prize Committee seemed to think he was ready. The subtle reminder of Malik's achievements hung in the air like a shield. Over the next few weeks, William and Malik spent long hours in William's office, poring over financial reports and strategy documents. They sat across from each other at William's desk, coffee cups growing cold as they discussed the company's future. The evening sun cast long shadows across the carpet, marking the passage of time as they worked. "The key is balancing profit with purpose," William explained, sliding a thick folder across the desk's polished surface. "These are our current sustainability initiatives. Good start, but not enough." His fingers drummed thoughtfully on the leather portfolio. Malik nodded, already formulating plans, his mind racing with possibilities. "I want to expand our environmental programs, but also launch a major educational initiative. Free coding camps in underserved communities, technology grants for schools, apprenticeship programs." His eyes sparkled with the same enthusiasm he'd shown when fixing broken gadgets as a child. "The board will want to see the numbers," William cautioned, leaning back in his chair. "I've got them right here," Malik replied, pulling out a detailed presentation from his briefcase. "We can actually increase profitability while expanding our social impact. It's about smart integration, not compromise." His fingers flew across his tablet as he pulled up charts and projections. During the next board meeting, Malik presented his vision with passionate precision. He outlined plans for sustainable manufacturing processes, educational outreach programs, and affordable technology initiatives. The skepticism in the room gradually transformed into engagement as he walked them through the financial projections and implementation strategy, his voice growing stronger with each slide. Even Thomas Bradford found himself nodding along, his earlier doubts melting away. "I must admit," he said after Malik's presentation, adjusting his glasses thoughtfully, "your approach is both ambitious and well-reasoned. Perhaps fresh eyes are exactly what we need." On William's final day, he stood in his office surrounded by packed boxes, each containing pieces of his professional legacy. He lifted a framed photograph from his desk. It showed him and Malik from years ago, both grinning as they tinkered with an old radio in the mansion's laboratory, a moment that had marked the beginning of their journey together. William handed it to Malik with gentle reverence, his hands slightly trembling with emotion. "I built this company for the future," William said softly, his voice thick with pride and nostalgia. "You are that future." Malik held the frame carefully, emotion welling in his throat as he promised, "I'll honor your legacy while making my own mark." The setting sun painted the office in golden hues, marking the end of one era and the dawn of another. William adjusted his tie as he walked up the marble steps of the grand hall, his polished shoes clicking against the stone. His retirement years had been peaceful, filled with gardening, occasional consulting work, and quiet evenings watching the sunset from his porch. But Malik's mysterious invitation had piqued his curiosity. The evening air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves, and the building glowed with warm light that spilled from its towering windows. As he reached the entrance, Malik appeared, dressed in an elegant black suit that fit his athletic frame perfectly. His smile was bright but held a hint of nervous excitement, and his eyes sparkled with barely contained joy. "Dad, you made it," he said, embracing William warmly, the familiar scent of his cologne bringing comfort. "Wouldn't miss it, though you've been quite secretive about this event," William replied, following Malik through the ornate doors with their gleaming brass handles. The hall took William's breath away, its grandeur exceeding his expectations. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over hundreds of familiar faces, their light dancing off the polished wooden floors. Business leaders he'd known for decades mingled with family members and old friends, their voices creating a pleasant symphony of conversation. Sophia, now a successful tech executive herself, waved from across the room, her success evident in her confident bearing. Even Richard, William's brother, stood among the guests, their hard-won reconciliation evident in his genuine smile and relaxed posture. Malik guided William to a plush seat at the front of the hall, squeezing his shoulder gently. The buzz of conversation died down as Malik took the stage, his presence commanding attention just as it had since his teenage years. Behind him, a large screen descended from the ceiling with a soft mechanical whir. "Tonight," Malik began, his voice clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the vast space. "We're here to announce something special." He paused, looking directly at William, emotion shining in his eyes. "The Harrington Foundation." The screen came to life with vibrant images of construction sites transforming into affordable housing complexes, children receiving scholarships with beaming faces, and communities being rebuilt brick by brick. Malik's voice narrated the foundation's mission: to combat poverty and homelessness globally, bringing hope to those who needed it most. William's eyes grew misty as he watched, his heart swelling with pride. Each initiative reflected values he'd tried to instill in Malik: compassion, innovation, and the responsibility to help others. The foundation wasn't just using his name, it was embodying everything he believed in, everything he'd dreamed of achieving. "This foundation," Malik continued, his voice thick with emotion, "is dedicated to the man who gave me a chance when I had nothing, who taught me that success means nothing if we don't lift others up along the way, who showed me what true strength looks like." William felt tears rolling down his weathered cheeks as he watched his son, remembering the determined boy from the alley who had become this remarkable man. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on the stage as Malik invited him to speak. Standing at the podium, William's voice trembled with emotion, his hands gripping the smooth wood. "All my life I believed my legacy was this company. Today I see it was you, Malik. The world is better because of you, son." Malik stepped forward, embracing his father tightly, neither caring about the tears that dampened their suit jackets. "You gave me the chance to be something, Dad. This is my thank you, my way of passing on what you taught me." The room erupted in thunderous applause as father and son stood together, their journey from that rainy night in an alley to this moment of triumph complete. The chandelier light caught the silver in their hair, creating halos around both men as they shared a moment that would be etched in their hearts forever. If you enjoyed the story of Williams, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.